From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on January 24th, 2025 from South Carolina Public Radio studios here in Columbia. On this episode of The Lede, we talk with Senator Larry Grooms as we continue our look at the $1.8 billion accounting discrepancy that has claimed another state financial official. This is the boondoggle that keeps on doggling. AT liked that one. He didn't even write it. I wrote that one. I can hear him laughing. It brings me joy. We look at some moves up in Washington this week involving our delegation, and we have a 2026 watch update.
2026 watch.
It's gonna melt your face. That being said, the Lede loves hearing from everyone. That's why we have a voicemail box set up at 803-563-7169. Give us a hot take, give us some thoughts. We use our discretion at what calls, make it to the wind down section. Some people question our editorial competency, but I will tell you in the wind down section, there's a reason to our madness. 803-563-7169. As part of our continuing coverage of the $1.8 billion state accounting discrepancy in the state treasurer's office, I'm bringing you my full interview with Berkeley Republican Senator Larry Grooms, who chairs the Senate Finance Subcommittee investigating this ongoing situation that has brought down Comptroller General Richard Ekstrom, and on Thursday, State Auditor George Kennedy also resigned. I spoke with Grooms on This Week in South Carolina and asked him to give me his initial thoughts on the $3 million forensic audit that was completed to get to the bottom of this complex discrepancy.
Well, last year, as we spoke, the treasurer had testified under oath before our subcommittee about the $1.8 billion. It seems he had lost track of it, and his job as treasurer is to keep track of the funds. So we're $1.8 billion in a fund, doesn't know where it's supposed to go. And then there were suggestions that it should be sent back to the taxpayer, the $1.8 billion. Then others had some ideas, well, wait a minute, that money may belong to the DOT. It may belong to retirement funds. Let's find out where the money belongs. And the argument sort of shifted away from why there's an error of $1.8 billion within our treasury. So the shift began, and the conversation then began. People even campaign on the fact that I'm going to send this money back to the taxpayer, all the while trying to discover the origins of the money. And I suspect, and I think you even shared it on your show, that the money probably doesn't exist. Well, we hired a forensic auditing team to come in and straighten out our state's finances. They examined more than 7,000 accounts, how the money passed through. They had conversations with many current and former employees of the state treasurer's office, the comptroller general's office, our state's auditor, our external auditor, and examining thousands of documents. They now have compiled their report, and they say categorically that the $1.8 billion does not exist. $1.56 billion of those monies never existed. About $200 and something million did exist, but those monies had been appropriated and had been spent. Mm-hmm. So there's no surplus funds around. There's no money excess to send back to the taxpayer. And it's kind of like all smoke and mirrors. It just never existed.
Does that kind of show the extent of the problem when you have the treasurer who recently put on his Facebook page that what he answered last year was fair and accurate as far as he knew based on reporting from other financial officials and documentation? So at the time he said that money did exist, now we know it didn't exist. Does that kind of illustrate how bad the problem was if he believed that it did exist, now we know it didn't?
If your treasurer, who's in charge of keeping the tax dollars safe, doesn't know whether $1.8 billion exists or not, when he testifies under oath that he earned $225 million in interest, and that interest was sent to the General Assembly, and that we spent the interest on that money. When he testifies under oath, when asked, is this money real? Is it tangible? Can you put your hands on it? And the answer under oath is yes. There's a problem. Mm-hmm. So either he was sorely mistaken or he lied.
And when it comes to that, Senator, does that mean it's also not just him being the problem here, but the former Comptroller General Richard Ekstrom, and then also the auditor being looped into this? I mean, is it just on him, or is it just kind of a culmination of these officials that were kind of also to blame?
The 1.8 billion is on him. The nearly 7 billion and over estimates of what our cash position was by the former comptroller, that's on him. That's where this all started. There was a misstatement 3 years ago that we examined by Comptroller General Ekstrom that suggested that our state had $3.5 billion in cash reserves that we really didn't have. Come to find out that number was closer to 7 billion. And then there were offsets that included this 1.8 billion, another 500 million that wasn't in the proper accounts from the Department of Transportation. All told together, our state books were a mess. Errors by the Comptroller General. Absolutely. We investigated that. He ended up resigning. And then the new Comptroller General saying, well, the state books still aren't fixed. There's a problem here. I see a multi-billion-dollar problem that resides within the Treasury, and the Treasurer did not want to comment on it, didn't want to have conversations with our Comptroller General. And so the investigation with my subcommittee continued, which led to lots of testimony, which led to spending $3 million on a forensic audit that says that the $1.8 billion doesn't exist.
Are there any more unresolved issues when it comes to the accounting systems in the state? Is there any more money that we know about having some sort of issues or not being assigned correctly?
Well, the journal entries have not been made to correct the errors. The forensic auditing team have given us a blueprint of what needs to occur with the various accounts in our state's accounting system to make sure that the books are now correctly accounted for. They're correctly adjusted. And when we do this, we're going to have to give notification regarding a financial statement that was published regarding the $3.5 billion error a few years ago. The 1.8 billion is actually part of that 3.5 billion. So some more detail has to be given over why there was an error. So that has to go into a financial document. But worse than that, and I can disclose this now, is that because of the errors within our state's financial system, when we prepare this document called the ACFR, the Annual Financial Reconciliation of our state, that's a document that the credit rating agencies use to say whether we're in good financial health or not. It's a document that institutional investors use when they decide if they're going to buy bonds from South Carolina or from any of our political subdivisions. And when we say we have cash reserves of $3.5 billion, and then they find out that we really didn't, they look at us a little bit funny because our accounting wasn't accurate. Decisions were made based on multi-million-dollar mistakes within our accounting system. That draws the attention of the Securities and Exchange Commission. There are certain legal obligations our state has to do with our accounting. The Securities and Exchange Commission has launched an investigation into our state's finances. They've had multiple interviews with state officials, and our Attorney General has now expended $4 million in defense of our state in regards to the Securities and Exchange Commission investigation, and has now requested an additional $5.5 million for continued legal defense in our Securities and Exchange Commission investigation.
So this is this fake money, this accounting error, this big error that's been described as now costing us upwards of $12 million, and that doesn't also include the fees when it comes to, I think, Treasurer Curtis Loftus's office legal fees, which are hundreds of thousands of dollars a month too, I believe.
Yes, there are additional fees other than what the Attorney General has expended from the various agencies that they're taking a look at.
So, Senator, when it comes down to what needs to happen, you were just talking about recommendations there, but do you think more needs to happen? We heard from you calling for the Treasurer to resign. We've seen Columbia Democratic Representative Heather Bauer filing articles of impeachment in the House. The governor has said that he still has confidence in Loftus and citing that others were involved in this big error. House Speaker Smith has a committee doing its own investigation in light of this audit. What do you see steps forward? What needs to be done to fix this problem and to restore trust? Because it sounds like our credit rating is under the gun here.
Our credit rating is under the gun. The forensic auditors came in and they gave us some specific recommendations to do. One, how to correct the mistakes that are there, and another suggesting that we do our state auditing differently. But more immediate, they recommended that we hire a third-party independent financial overseer, a compliance firm, to take a look at all the transactions that the treasurer is engaged in right now and how that's reported to the comptroller general to ensure that it's being done in a way that others can have confidence that it's correct. And if we don't do this, it's very likely that the Securities and Exchange Commission would impose that type of financial oversight over us. And if we don't do it, they're going to do it. And if they do it, we'll lose some of the control that we could otherwise have, and it would be more costly. So our subcommittee passed a we gave a favorable report to a resolution that authorizes the Department of Administration to go ahead and hire a third-party financial babysitter, in essence, to take a look exactly what's happening within the Treasurer's office to ensure that the right mechanisms and that there's transparency with the way the transactions occur and how they are accounted for.
And again, more money we're talking about here to do that in a position that should be already doing that. So are there more moves that need to happen when it comes to laws in the books? We have a few minutes left here, but when it comes to making these positions, having more oversight, putting them under the governor, for example, what do you think needs to happen there when it comes to these positions?
Oh, I believe the comptroller general and the treasurer should be appointed by the governor. These are professional opinions. These are professional positions. We need to have accountants, not crusaders, taking a look at our state's book and reporting the transactions. And if there are issues with communication, as we've now documented through the independent forensic audit, through the Mulder and Jenkins report, through outside sources, I know, and it's been testimony to the fact that communication between the auditor and the treasurer and the comptroller have not been the best of conversations, that we've got a clash of personalities and good information isn't passed. And instead of the comptroller and the treasurer being a check on each other, as the law says they should be, they've almost been a cloak for each other. The comptroller had issues, the treasurer had issues, they both knew the other side had issues, but they didn't want to speak about it. And each of the comptroller and the treasurer has a lawful duty to inform the General Assembly when there are matters of importance that we need to know. And making one of the largest, making, as we've now heard, the largest financial blunder in the history of states. No state has had errors like this, over $3 billion, sometimes up to $7 billion within our accounting system. That's unheard of. That's unprecedented. That needs to go away. The governor needs to be able to knock those two heads together and get them to play ball or be able to fire one of them.
That was Berkeley Republican Senator Larry Grooms talking with me on TWISC. Now, the auditor resigned the day after we spoke, which throws a wrench into state financial issues. Yeah, like we need one more wrench in there. It's just a wrench closet, you know? Oh, God, how many are there? Specifically this wrench, dealing with the completion of the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR, to those in the know, that the auditor must sign off on. Without an auditor in place, this will likely delay the publication of the ACFR, this critical document, at a time when all eyes are scrutinizing state financial documents, including the SEC and credit ratings agencies. Next up, while Columbia was frozen and snowy and cold, Washington was as well, but it was moving and grooving. Here are some highlights from our delegation in our Washington Watch segment. 4th District Republican Congressman William Timmons was named to Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's Oversight Subcommittee for Delivering on Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE. The panel will, quote, strive to eliminate waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement within federal agencies, quote, according to Greene. So that's a big get there for William Timmons. In the Senate, U.S. Senator Tim Scott appeared on CNBC's Squawk Box to squawk about the Senate Banking Committee he now chairs and its priorities. Number one, he says, is we want a responsible level of regulation, not an oppressive level of regulations. His other two priorities include capital formation and home ownership. So we'll be seeing some moves out of his committee this year. The full U.S. Senate will vote on Charlestonian Scott Besson's confirmation as Treasury Secretary after his nomination was advanced by a 16-11 vote on Tuesday by the Senate Finance Committee. We're not getting you out of this Washington Watch without a little something from Senator Lindsey Graham, who gavelled in his first Budget Committee hearing as chairman and told members this ahead of OMB head Russell Vogt's confirmation hearing.
We're going to have 5-minute questioning. Be hard, be challenging. Don't make a complete ass of yourself, and let's get through this thing.
Words we can all live by, Senator. And 1st District Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace tells the Associated Press's and friend of the pod, Meg Kennard, that, quote, we are seriously considering a statewide run for governor in 2026, quote. That's a 2026 watch.
2026 watch.
And you probably know a little bit about Nancy Mace, but here's a little bit of a refresher. She's a 47-year-old Citadel graduate. She was the first woman to do so, and is also a former South Carolina House lawmaker who won her state house seat in a special election and only served a single 2-year term before running for Congress. She's recently garnered headlines for her heated and at times derogatory rhetoric involving transgender individuals, as well as her legislative actions targeting that community. Now, what's next in the governor's race? Well, no candidate has officially jumped in the race, so we're all kind of thinking about it if you think about it, when you think about it.
Wow.
And that's on both sides, the Democratic or Republican side. But names are certainly floating around, besides Mace, including Governor Henry McMaster's Lieutenant Governor, Pamela Evette, and Attorney General Alan Wilson. One name not floating around anymore is Senator Tim Scott. In fact, as Banking Committee Chairman, well, that's a huge position for him that sets him up for a lot down the road. I think something's bigger than just being governor. No offense to the highest office in our state, but I don't put him in our 2026 watch because he is also focused on Senate fundraising ahead of the 2026 midterms as National Republican Senatorial Committee Chairman. And lawmakers will be back in session next week. Do not worry. We had this past week to do a lot of committee work, but a lot of inclement weather prevented a lot of that. So we're going to go and see what folks got on tap next week when we gavel back into the State House. And just a little reminder for you, on Wednesday, January 29th at 7 p.m., we'll be live streaming and broadcasting the governor's annual State of the State address. You can catch it on SCETV, South Carolina Public Radio channels, and of course, our social media platforms. We'll see you then. Welcome to the Wind Down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here. A.T. Shire, producer of the Lead podcast, is here with us, folks.
Yep,
Hello,
I'm here.
A.T.
Thank you.
Say goodnight, Kevin. Good night, Kevin.
Oh, he did it to him.
Classic Home Alone
It's
reference
so
right
good.
there.
It's really good.
So I just want to acknowledge what I mentioned at the top there. We did get a phone call in the hopper.
A little mean.
A little sass. A little sass. But I want to address it because the question was really basically why did we focus so much on President Joe Biden's visit versus the inauguration of a new administration? To that I say, we had the President of the United States of America in our state for his last full day in office. That's not something that happens every day, and it's a big deal because of South Carolina's prominence and connection to the White House. And of course, some people call that Democratic propaganda. That's what I call the news. That's my definition of the news right there. Whatever's happening, we're reporting it to you and giving you as much as we can because that's what we do as a statewide podcast. If you want some national news, hey, I listen to The Daily. I listen to plenty of other podcasts that will give you all the inauguration coverage you want. But again, Tim Scott was not vice president. Lindsey Graham wasn't doing anything that day. We talked to Lindsey Graham that day. In fact, we put him in the podcast. So when you have bigger priorities, that's how the news judgment works. Just want to give you guys a little idea about that. It's not propaganda. It's not picking one side or the other. It might seem that way because it's not what you want to hear, but that's what the news is, baby.
My biggest thing is it's hard to be Democratic propaganda in a state with a Republican supermajority, and it's your job to report on it.
I'm covering all the Republican news. In fact, people are probably mad that I'm covering so much Republican stuff. But guys, this is what it is. I don't create the news here. I cover it.
And everyone was covering the inauguration. So to cover something more state-focused, we thought that was going to be...
No one else gave you that coverage that we gave
you weren't going to hear about that anywhere else. So that's why we did it. And
that's what we're here for.
Thank you for listening. But anyway, Gavin,
we have even bigger news.
There's huger news. And I would also like to point out the only propaganda on this show is for the Philadelphia Eagles. Go Birds!
so toxic.
But,
We're going to see what happens on Sunday, everyone. Hail. Hail. Okay. Hail.
HTTC, okay?
Hail. Okay. You guys know what I mean.
Okay, Gavin, we do have
some big
huge
news.
Huge news. It hasn't been revealed to me yet,
it's
so
a surprise.
let's hear it. Let's go.
So in the culinary world, in my office, in my kitchen, which I like to consider
Gavin
my
is
office,
becoming a greater and greater Epicurean and epicure in his life.
so gourmet. It's
Yes,
like I
a
can't
gourmand.
I can't even like if you go to these dinners and you're like.
I'm better at this. My escargot's better.
Actually, there's great escargot at Lidl. Get it? It's frozen.
Lidl. Ugh.
Lidl.
Gross.
I have a new appliance in my kitchen.
Fun. Let's go back, Gavin.
You want to know all the appliances?
I've bought you.
Yes.
You.
You got me the air fryer, 2 Christmases ago, and I use it all the time. I love it as much as we used to talk about it. I think it fell off of a cargo ship crossing the Pacific, but it still works great.
Its brethren are sunken in the bottom lost souls. You have
my father.
You have an Instant Pot.
I have an Instant Pot.
Yes.
My father,
Yes.
creator of this podcast,
Yeah, founder.
got me a microwave a couple years ago for my birthday.
Which was huge.
Just
Absolutely huge. Absolutely huge.
sparingly use it considering how much space it takes up. But it's there. I'm one of you. I have a toaster.
What do we have now?
And I always have a Ninja, the blender, right? Fantastic.
That's a brag. Okay.
But
let's go.
now, my kitchen's not big at all. Like
It's not.
It's very small.
Yeah,
This is all stuff on top of like my washer, my dryer, right? Like we are out of counter space after the Instapot. Now I have
Let's hear it.
a juicer, a macerating juicer.
This is big. This is big. What did you?
Oh,
First thing through.
everything.
Anything
Anything
can
I
be
can,
juiced.
anything I can grab.
You got a nice steak? Juice it. Juice it, baby.
You got a nice egg.
Chicken breast?
Can I offer you a nice egg in these trying
Boneless,
times?
skinless chicken
Just
thighs?
you mash it.
Juice it. Macerate it, baby.
I've been turned on to juicing lately, and I said I need to have my own.
This is by your own volition. You have this juicer.
I can't get enough of the fresh juice, baby. It produces I got like 64 ounces of
Your
juice. Okay, now
yield? Your
my
yield?
yield is insane. So what I'm juicing here, you're asking, I'm going to tell you, a whole pineapple. You know, you can get a pineapple for $2.
Rind and all? You just putting the whole thing in
cut
there?
the top, I cut the bottom, then I chop it up a little bit, put the whole thing in. Then I do some lemon, I do some celery,
Ugh.
I do
Celery's
some
so
carrot,
disgusting. Carrot is great.
get a ginger
You're
root in
making
there.
your own V8 in there.
And then I get red cabbage, half a head of red cabbage. I mean, that just is just good stuff right there. Talking about it, I want
Cabbage
my
is
juice.
having a glow up in the last
Red
10,
cabbage.
15 years. Yeah, big time.
And then just, I mean, the carrots are pretty much, you could just do your carrot juice, So it's
deceptively
great.
sweet,
It produces
very
a lot.
sweet.
And, you
yield.
throw an apple in there if you want to get a little bit sweeter. Sometimes it's too sweet.
Carrots are very sweet.
I know.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
You know what I need you to get on? The beet train.
I could do beets.
You got to beet.
Beets
beat
are
it. Beat it, baby.
surprisingly pricey for what they are. But I like canned beets. I
Even
can get
at
sliced
Lidl.
canned beets.
Even
yeah.
at Lidl.
Lidl, Aldi. I mean, they hate to see me coming, guys. You can hear how energized I am just from the juice.
His skin is glowing, people.
That's also why I'm doing it.
His bioluminescence is off the charts. The lights are out.
I can't tell
It's
you the
bright
last
in
time I
here.
had solids.
Now I want to see you. I want to see you using all of them. I want to see you juicing into the Instant Pot. Put that on for a few
Well,
hours. Hit it the air fryer.
Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you. Not many people know this. You can use the pulp that comes out of the juicer for any number of different uses. Soups, chilies.
It's like edible
little-
mulch. Yeah, absolutely,
You
absolutely.
can try it into a bar and take it with you on the go. Who
Yeah.
doesn't want dried red cabbage pulp?
I need you to get a dehydrator next. Okay, make your own jerkies.
No, but I'm definitely going to start putting that stuff into soup. We're in soup season, or just I want to
deep
get a
in
compost.
soup season.
I want to get a compost pile going because this is just.
But
gold
you're
going
gonna
to
eat it. You're gonna eat it.
I'm going to compost it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So send us some juice recipes.
You know
folks.
what? You could use probably your washing machine as a compost bucket. It turns over. Flip it over. You just got to run some cost benefits on this.
Put it in the dryer.
Some cost benefits on this, and
You got to heat it up. Well, you want to heat the compost up so it really breaks down. So just throw it in the dryer.
It's dual purpose. Okay, it's dual purpose.
I don't see how I'm breaking the lease here.
No, I'll pay for it. I'll take it. I don't care. It's got two functions, multi-use.
No, you just have to turn it to the compost setting.
Yeah, that's high.
So,
High
yeah.
and hot. That's it.
I'm telling you, it's going to change my life. You're going to just notice I'm just going to be glowing so much. I'm going to be so positive.
I can't wait for
It's 2025. Everyone should be juicing.
I can't wait for the creepy crawler metal magic that you start running through there. You know, the tin fish in the juicer.
No, I'm not going to be juicing any meats.
Savory juices. You know, I'm very interested. The kinds of martinis you come up with.
I'm not going to be making pate. In the
Yeah,
juicer.
yeah. Throw some foie gras.
It's
in
kind of
there.
a pain to clean a little bit, but the trade-offs.
Yeah, I mean the benefits.
They just outweigh.
Well, oh man,
The ROI is insane.
The ROI on this is off the charts. Much like this
are going to want to
podcast.
know. You guys are going to want to know more about the ROI.
Speaking of that, we can't give any more of this away for free. You're going to have to find us on our Patreon. Yeah. You can buy some tote bags there from us and get the lead after dark is there.
Right,
also.
that's why I exclusively sell my juices.
Yeah, Gavin's Goop. It's on there. Okay?
Oh my God, I
Yep.
need labels.
There you go. We got labels coming, folks. So if you want your Goop, if you want his Goop and you,
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow will probably sue me over it.
oh, that's true.
It'd
I
be
forgot
the
about it.
second lawsuit.
We'll call it Gavin's Juice.
we went
both
skiing that
both
one
G's.
time. Yeah.
Juice start with a G, okay? Gavin's Juice. Anyway, Gavin, hit him with those credits. Starts with a C.
Thanks, y'all. Please give us a shout at 803-563-7169. We'd love hearing from you guys. And of course, you can show your appreciation by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. And you can stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org/news and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. A.B. Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
If I won the lottery and got like $400,000,
$400,000?
$400,000. Yeah, I come back in 3 years.
You're like, hey, you guys still doing the pod?